web conference that we're having today. Now, at this time, I'd like to introduce our presenters. James Bell is the Director of Business Services for High Plains Surgery Center in Lubbock, Texas. James has assisted with the planning and development of this multi-specialty ASC from the early stages as a de novo center, and he's been the Director of Business Services there since 2006. He currently oversees a staff of 12, which encompasses all aspects of the business office and the growing volume of work there at High Plains. He performs data analysis duties with the use of business intelligence software to review revenue, collections, costs, and profitability, as well as decisions for insurance contracting. Today, James will be sharing his experience using Lighthouse software, which he's had on hand since November of 2011. Also joining us from Clara, the parent of Lighthouse, are Craig Poley, Clara's CIO and co-founder, and Michael Cipoletti, the Director of Client Services for Clara. These gentlemen have used Lighthouse while overseeing multiple revenue cycles for a growing number of ambulatory surgery centers. They're with us today to talk about the ways Lighthouse may answer the business intelligence needs of your center. So that being said, we'd like to turn the conversation over to James and start out by asking a little bit more about how he started to use Lighthouse and what brought him to Lighthouse. James?
Well, Ann, thank you, and thank you everybody for attending today. You know, in the ASC world, reimbursement has been changing rapidly over the past several years, and it's always been one of the ones to try to find a way to best put the handle on it. You know, there's been decreasing reimbursements, rising costs, the varying reimbursement methodologies, whether implants are covered, and it's turned into a more technical and tougher to maneuver world that we have. We were looking for ways to make it easier for our team members here on their collections and their coding, and Lighthouse presented with me a way to use it and make it easier. Sorry about the getting a little deal. Been losing my voice. We've used another business intelligence center here since we opened too, and it's always been very useful on what the information we got, but it was more management level and not really user friendly or geared for the troops down on the field that do all the works. So when we got Lighthouse, they offered us our products that worked with Advantix, which is what we use, but it's also with all the other source products. It provided information for our team to be able to use quickly and easily.
Thanks, James. By the way, Ann Geyer, our Vice President of Clinical Informatics, has been able to join us. And I know she has a few questions about the background and your experience with Lighthouse. Ann?
Yes, thanks, everybody. I was having some audio difficulties, and I appreciate your patience. James, can you tell us, before we get into the details of Lighthouse, more specifics about your center, like your case mix? I know you're multi-specialty, your payer mix, typical number of cases you do, monthly or yearly, whether you're freestanding or joint venture, and I think you have a management company. Just give us some background before we dig into this some more.
You bet. We are a multi-specialty ASC located in Lubbock. We do about 10 different specialties, believe it or not. We go all the way from GI to urology to spine surgery, ear, nose, and throat, plastics, general, ophthalmology, to name a lot of them there. We are part of a management company. We are a little different than the other people in our management company. We are the only ASC out there. The rest of them are outpatient cath labs that is really growing. Our facility does, probably 525 cases a month, so a little over 6,000 a year, and we have 3 operating rooms and 2 procedure rooms. So we've got kind of a wide variety of what we do.
Well, you really do, and the other challenge is you go from specialties like ophthalmology and GI that have fairly low reimbursement to spine, which is all, that's a huge range, as well as the fact that you deal with implants.
Correct.
Okay.
It's by no means cookie cutter.
No, I wouldn't describe your center as cookie cutter, and it's a busy center too. So I want to get some background as to what attracted you to Lighthouse, and because you're a Source Medical client, which platform are you using of Source Meds?
We are using Advantix.
Okay. And so how did the tie-in occur with Lighthouse?
Well, actually, the tie-in from Lighthouse was, I guess, in a way, a former Source employee, I mean, former now, had kind of told me a little bit about them previously, and we were using another business intelligence product that helped us a lot, but it really wasn't able to manage the daily details for the collectors. And the Clara team, Lighthouse team, reached out to me and wanted me to try to trial it and look at it. And kind of leery at first because you get comfortable with one system that you're using, but it didn't have quite all the information that I needed with it.
Okay.
And I tried it, and it was immediately a hit. For me at first, and then it was trying to work with the staff to get them a little bit on it, but that came farther along.
Okay. So you see this as an extension of your current software with Advantix?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the time savings and how it pulls in the information from a source product from Advantix in our instance is superb.
Okay. So it sounds to me like it's an integral part of your business operations. So you're using it on a daily basis, correct?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Describe on a day-to-day basis how you interact with Lighthouse.
Well, I'm going to kind of give you a couple of different parts in the way they do it, because the way I interact with it as a manager and the way the rest of my team members is a little bit of different. But I use it on a daily basis. As Michael will show you, he's logged in here. The first when you come in is you will get your case counts for your month, your summaries, kind of just a quick overview of where you've been for the month. I might add that when you're looking at this part, that since everybody's closes happen at a different time, they update this information, I believe it is, Michael, you might correct me, in the middle of the month, so you'll be seeing the previous month for about half of the month. But one of the other big parts of it is the key performance indicators, or the little dashboards you can look at, and you can get a quick overview of where you're at on your AR, where that, if any of the counts were ages, for one of them here is any of your aging claims, 91 days last worked. You can click the part. You can get details to go in and look who it is. You can look at insurance AR, your patient AR, charges. So basically a lot of the key indicators that you would want to look at to go into to just see where you're at that moment in time.
Okay. And so you get this every day, and overseeing the business office, these are great statistics to have. You go from there, and you're working with your team. So how is your team using this? Is everybody in the business office using Clara? And explain how they all interact with the system.
Yes, each one of our users has their own separate login, and they have their own responsibilities for the accounts that they are supposed to work. Michael's showing you here a part here that each individual person will log in. There are reminders set up on when accounts need to be worked or when they should be worked, and we can get into a little bit more of that later.
Okay.
But my employees will go to, I guess, Michael, can you go over to the reports first? And Ann, if I could back up one thing, I was going to show one thing that I use as a manager too, really working with the employees, is going down to the payment audit results worksheet.
Okay.
This is, on my part, the first part that I'll look at every day. And what this does is if you can get set up your audit with loading in your contracts, which does take a little bit of time and effort, but if you have your contracts already loaded, it should be a breeze. It will look at all of the claims that have been processed. Michael, if you can find one here, let's just look at, I think when we looked earlier, there was one from an Anthem Health that we went through. In this one sheet, and this is kind of really where the collectors can utilize too, but this will show down all of the claims that were filed on it, and if you'll notice on the left-hand side, it has dots, and it tells you how it went through the audit process. The green tells you that everything cleared the audit. The red will tell you that you need to check it that it failed the audit, and if it's an orange, it'll tell you basically it's an overpayment. So if your contracts are loaded in, it not only looks at your contracts on your reimbursement rates about what you expected and what it's allowing, but it will also check the coding sequencing to make sure they are in the proper order for you. So it's one you can really catch errors quickly and get them responded quickly before it gets too far out.
Okay. So let's presume, and I want to remind everybody, this is a demo center. This isn't necessarily your center, James.
Correct.
So on this particular shoulder arthroscopy, that primary paid a certain amount. The reds were denials, basically. They didn't pay.
Well,
so
no, that's not necessarily what that's going to say. Is on the first part, it's going to come back and it's going to tell you that there was some type of audit area. You can check the parts above for click to verify coding for this case, as Michael's doing here for us. And it's going to tell you that there was a potential error that was found and that could have been missequenced. So that could have been some revenue lost because of sequencing.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so when I said denial, now you keep mentioning an audit. What's the audit?
The audit is done by Lighthouse. They have a coding system set up with all of the CPT codes. They use the RVU balances for all of the codes.
Okay.
And so they're first looking at the coding sequences. One of the other one of the other options is depending on how detailed you want to get into your Advanix database, and is whether you've got all of your contracts loaded in. At our center, we load every contract we have in. We take all of our time of billings or adjustments at the time of billing, or hopefully that's when we're getting it. So this will also tell when it comes back in if there was an adjustment that it was off, if James had input a contract with the incorrect amount.
Okay. And that's where you would also load whether implants are included in payable or whether they're outsourced, or it's all in there.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, we highly advise people to load contracts, and it's amazing how many don't. So thank you for your explanation on that one.
Well, no, and it's really super because it's when you get in and you find errors that you make, and you find them both ways, I will say, from my error loading them in or catching errors from the insurance company. The audit will also let you flag for the collectors and if there's an underpayment for appeal purposes too.
Okay. Yeah, no, that helps a lot. Thank you. So you've got your team on board, and you mentioned the home office. Now, you have a management company, correct? So
yes, ma'am, we do.
So how does this information, how is this exchanged with them?
They have access to all of the information. I will say on our part, with us being kind of the square peg in the round hole, I guess it is, with the different types of lines of business, our operations are different, but I know that Michael can probably help me with this, is I demoed this first, and some of our vice presidents were here. I showed it to them, and they were ecstatic. They got on the phone with the other people at the home office, wanted to get onto it, and they pretty much did, and they put in daily processes and automations that they use in their centers to keep up totally on it. You know, I wish I could tell you a lot more on how it goes because I'm so different. I haven't really been trained on that part. but I know that it's one that they got on right after we got on board, and they deeply ingrained it into their system.
Okay.
And might add that their own vision.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Now, this has all been really positive, but what challenges or obstacles did you face when you implemented Lighthouse?
You know, I think the biggest obstacles I had was trying to get people to change their train of thoughts. You know, at my particular center, I utilize 3 collectors, and we have them divided up, and we go from, I guess, 2 very experienced and 1 inexperienced. And the inexperienced one, when she was coming in and learning, she took on it like crazy because that's the only way she knew.
She didn't have any bad habits to unlearn.
Did not have any bad habits to unlock, and that was great. She is probably utilizes it more extent than any of the others. I could go on the other side of the spectrum that I have one of my collectors that's pretty good, but she's pretty much set in her ways, and that's not the way she wanted to do it. And when I first tried to put her into it, would pull up the screens, and I'm going to get Michael to show up first. If he'll just pull up any account, it doesn't really matter. If you'll look on this screen here, if going from looking at Advanix, you've got all the details on one page, and you're not having to flip around into Advanix to find out who the insurance was, when the birth date was. It's all accessible. Well, a lot of this when we first started wasn't all there. And so every time we would present it to her, well, it doesn't have this information. Well, I would call Michael or Craig and get my suggestions or ask, is this information available or are we not looking in the right spot? And it always got solved. There was always a way to, here's the information, or the information got added to it. So I kind of knocked her down, I guess for a lot of better way to say, you can't use an excuse because it doesn't have the information for you.
Because the information within the system, it's just...
Well, and part of it was you just didn't want to look. It was trying to find an excuse because it doesn't have this on this one sheet, so I'm going to use it the other way. Well, no, it's all here.
So now you've been using it for how long?
We have been 2.5 years, coming up on 3 in November.
So have you worked through all the challenges or obstacles, or are you still having some challenges?
You know, I would not say that we're having challenges. I think that it's pretty much people who have got, I don't want to say indoctrinated to know that's the way it works, and they're realizing the benefits of using it. You know, I throw challenges and obstacles to Michael sometimes because I come up and ask for different questions and can you do this and can you do that? But everything tends to get settled to get an answer to what I'm looking for because, again, this is a very powerful system, and I'm going to tell you why they probably consider me a power user. I don't think I've drawn on everything that it can do for us. I think I'm still learning on it, so I think it's still a growth in progress on my part.
Okay. So you've been on it for 2.5 years. What would you say was your timeline for implementation? How long did it take?
You know, the timeline for implementation, it probably took from the time we said, hey, we want to go and we want to look on it, it probably took a couple of weeks to get the meeting set up with myself, my coders, my collectors, and then probably, you know, 30 to 45 days for everybody to kind of get comfortable with what they were using and asking their questions and trying to find why they shouldn't use it instead of why it was a great tool to use.
Okay. Did it interrupt your business functions as far as you're using Advanix on a day-to-day basis, or did it complement it even though during the implementation process?
I think it complemented it, and I think it actually, going from the part with Advanix, to me, it made it a lot easier.
Okay.
We go back from, you know, with a Source Plus Lighthouse, you've got one source for all your information on this one screen. And of course, with the way it works between the two systems, pulling the notes and all that, you've always got accurate information. So I think it improved efficiency is what it did.
That's wonderful. During the training, did you feel like the training was on your staff level so that they understood it and they had plenty of opportunity to ask questions, or was it painful? You know how that goes when you try to do something new.
No, well, you know, I'm going to say it's going to have its painful anytime it's something new, but they did such an excellent job, Michael and the group, to bringing it down. It's like I mentioned at the very start of the meeting, I use another business intelligence product too with probably a lot more analytical stuff that they would have never been able to handle, but this puts it down to the everyday workers, what you're looking at and what you need, and not having to decipher.
I hear you. Well, that sounds good. It sounds like you have an excellent relationship with the Clara. You've mentioned working with Michael very closely, and it sounds like it's an ongoing relationship and dynamic and fluid.
Oh, definitely. It's one that the whole relationship with the whole team at Lighthouse has been great from day one. I think when they presented it first to me, I had lots of questions, and one of the big things I told them is that they wanted me to try it, and they wanted input, because that's one thing they asked. They better get ready for it, and believe me, I think you can ask them. They got a lot of input and questions and comments, but that's the best thing about it, is because they listen. They're not a one-size-fit-all, this is it and this is all it'll do.
Okay. Well, now that you've been on Lighthouse for 2.5 years, would you ever go back to your previous way of doing business?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know how some of y'all, older y'all are on that stuff, but you know, you've got the internet now and you've got Google, and I don't know how many people remember having to go to the libraries to look stuff up and look in the card catalogs. That's kind of what it would be to change, to be going backwards.
Wow. Well, we're looking at a screen now, Michael, of management reporting and the workflow automation and affiliate reports. Can you and James describe what are some of your most valuable reports, James, and you know, anything that you wish you had that's not on here?
Well, as far as going saying wish that I could add that's not on here right now, not to my knowledge, because I'm still working through a lot of them. As we know, when we went through the workflow automation is where my team members use a lot, and the AR by payer, this group here, you have an AR by payer, which gives you kind of a quick snapshot of how it goes. And I think one of the interesting things is that you say you've got this, and it shows all your insurances by payer. You can sort this by all the different columns. You can even go over and select the current payer. I think Michael's got one here. Select one of the payers, and then it'll show you all the patients within that payer, and then you can even further drill down to within it. So it's for my collectors, this is the #1 screen.
That's it, huh?
And Michael, if you could go back to that real quick. Well, that's one thing I was going to say. You can also export this to Excel. You saw on your screen a lot of information, but when you export it to Excel, you get a lot more information. So you can get all that information here. What I will do when I'm working with my collectors is a lot of times I will run this, and then I will sort out specific information to try to go the days, what it is, the information. And I think one of the biggest parts is this pulls your comments over from your base system, so you've got them all in one spot. Again, you're not having to flip back to all the different screens in your base system.
Wow. That is good. That's really good. I forgot to ask you, do you do any out-of-network? Are you in-network?
We are majority in-network center. We are looking at going out-of-network. And some of these reports that we get here help you analyze what your payers are paying and your costs are in your management reporting.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about case costing? How Lighthouse would help you with case costing?
I sure can. Michael, if you just get over, you can do it by various different ways. We can go to case cost by codes. Let's go to the first one there. It's kind of a little different. I've got a different driver, so I'm back seat over here on this.
That's all right.
You can pull in and run it for certain periods. They've got calendars up so you can pull it in. You can get your codes. You can sort by payer, providers, how they paid, by your physicians. It goes in, and actually if Michael, what he could do is if he'll just pick the very first one would be fine. You can pull up the code. It will tell you all of your patients, who the physician was, how much you collected, and you can actually go drill back down into that patient. Now, if he will go back, I believe it's the case cost analysis. Michael, is that correct?
Case cost overview, I believe.
Yes, case cost overview, I'm sorry. You can pull in and put in your monthly expenses that you can get from your financial statements. It will pull your monthly supply cost, and this will tell you an average case cost. Now, I will say on this part, this is overall, so it treats all cases as equal, which we know all cases are not equal. Going from GI to C spine.
Yeah.
But if you did want to know, go back in, you could do I believe, Michael, if you get back to the main screen, and help me if I'm wrong, because I'm not driving, I'm talking faster than you're driving.
Oh, you're doing a great job.
It is supply cost overview.
So just to clarify, Lighthouse will pull in supply costs if you are entering those on your preference cards within your base systems. And those will be tied back directly to the case. However, a lot of our users use a third-party system to track their outside expenses, maybe utilities, rent, overhead. And so we give users the ability to enter those supply costs, not supply costs, but expenses. So expenses you could enter into Lighthouse, and then it will generate these different reports. So the report we're actually looking at now, the supply cost overview, is pulling actual expenses entered for these cases and giving you a profit or a loss.
So are these the medical supply costs that you're talking about here? Or
correct.
Expenses, yeah. You're talking about total expenses or supply costs per case?
However the center is entering them in, supplies would be whatever is entered in the base system.
Gotcha.
So it could be implants, it could be gloves.
Yeah. Okay. That's part of the issue. I'll be talking about that at the user meeting, is that the supply costs per case are only as good as the people entering the data, and we strongly encourage people to use that, because then you get a report that's very accurate.
I will say I definitely agree. We are one of those ones from our very inception that we have logged all of our case costs. We've logged all of our employee time costs into the source system, so we can always feel that we've really got a true and accurate. And what helps, when Michael was going back on the case cost overview, we're able to put in all of our other expenses, which the system is not tracking, to get you a total overall view.
Gotcha. That looks good, because case costing is always a really hot topic, and people don't know how to do it. It can be done with our basic system, obviously Advanix and SIS and Vision, but you can't do anything unless you've loaded it in the system. Well, let's talk a little bit about, and Craig, you might want to jump in on this. How customizable are the reports in your Lighthouse system?
Well, they're pretty customizable based on whatever somebody wants to see. Like, for example, what you saw on the export, the aging worksheet export that Michael showed earlier. We've actually got lots of different fields that are shown or hidden there based on who you are, who the client is, and what they've expressed that they want to see. Some clients want to see even more than this. Some clients want to see less. So we've built lots of custom reports as well. You know, referring back to the home office, Michael, I don't recall exactly. We've got 3 or 4 standalone reports that they only see, and these are reports that they've built and kind of baked into their business process. So As far as what the customization is, really, it's only limited by our imagination. We've really not come up across something that we haven't been able to pull off yet.
Well, that's wonderful to know. And Michael, how often is the data refreshed?
Yeah, we take a daily snapshot of our customers' data, so it's refreshed daily. And every time they log in, they'll see the time of the last update appear in the upper portion of their login screen. So it's daily updates.
Well, that's good. Craig, I'm going to go back to you. And, you know, we're having to do all of this ASC quality reporting for CMS. Are there reports in your system that help with that data collection?
Right now, we're actually getting ready to deploy a third menu level here for the quality measures reporting. Specifically, right now, we're working on the ASC measures 1 through 5, which are the QDC codes, and we've got a report right now. I'm waiting on final approval from Michael, actually, on getting ready to launch that. We have other pieces in there right now. On some of the case detail screens, you might have seen that there's a safe surgery checklist, and this is optional.
That's one they had to report last year.
Right. So all of the different quality measures that have been outlined, we are essentially trying to accommodate each one of those. And like, for example, in the safe surgery checklist, if you fill this all in, it'll be stored and recorded within Lighthouse. And when they actually publish what the specifications are going to be and the reporting requirements, we're going to match it. So it'll just be a matter of run the report and you're all set to go with that reporting. So we're working on all of that right now. And, you know, some of them, like number 11, I think they just delayed. And
yeah, that was all three of the new ones, 9, 10, and 11. I'm writing a talk for our user meeting on this. 9, 10, and 11 really are not ASC measures. They're things that are collected outside of the ASCs, which has become a real challenge for all of us in the industry, because it's like, how are we even supposed to get this information? We don't see the patients. So that's why number 11 got pushed back so quickly, and now we're stuck with 9 and 10 and trying to figure out how to do that.
Yep.
Is there a way that you can restrict the users on certain reports? In other words, is there security built in that somebody can see one thing but they can't see another report in this system?
There is, and folks have the ability to manage their user logins. So you can set folks' permission level. So some folks will be able to see everything. Others have limited access. Maybe you don't want them to see the financial reports, but you want them to be able to access some of the case details. You can manage all of that through this tool, as well as if you are an enterprise client, we have the ability to aggregate or consolidate data across multiple systems. And when that happens, oftentimes folks will have staff that are specific to a single center. And so we have the ability to allow them to see just a specific center's data set, or we can roll it together and give them enterprise access. So there is the ability to manage what folks can see.
Okay. How many people can be on the system at one time?
However many you need.
Okay. So there's not you don't max out, say that you have, is it done by licenses? Can you explain that a little bit?
Our service fees are monthly, and those monthly fees give you unlimited number of users. So you can have 1 user or you can have 10 users. The subscription covers all of them. There's really no difference.
Okay. The next question had to do with data and how much data is displayed in the system. Michael, do you want to address that?
Sure. By default, we pull in a rolling 2 years worth of data. So every time you log in, you're going to have a rolling 2 years worth of data available. Upon request, we are able to pull in additional information, but the majority of our users find that having 2 years worth of information is sufficient.
Okay. And how long does it take to get this all set up, Craig?
Generally speaking, we say a couple weeks. Sometimes it's a little faster, sometimes it's a little slower. It depends a little on the IT, how quickly we're able to get connected, and then just kind of a scheduling thing, being able to set up some training time so that we can get users in to look at the data.
Okay. And I would like to remind everybody that Lighthouse will be at the ASCA meeting next week, and actually you will be located adjacent to the Source Medical booth, won't you?
I
We
think
will.
we're right across.
Right
Yeah,
across, right in the vicinity. People aren't going to have to look very far if they find us. Okay. And I would remind any of the attendees to please stop and see it and how this works on a user basis where you can actually see what's available in there. Michael, do you want to address the data analysis program that you've got?
Sure. So as part of our relationship with Source Medical, their sales team is offering a free data analysis to all users. And we will dive deeply into 2 years' worth of data and appear with a very transparent picture of how your business office is performing and seeing if there are ways that, or what kind of opportunities exist and ways that Source Medical and would be able to help fill those needs.
That sounds good. And you'll have more information about that. You'll also be at our users meeting, correct?
We will. We'll be presenting at the users meeting, and we'll also have more information available in both the Clara and Source Medical booth.
Okay. Well, James or Craig or Michael, do you all have anything you want to add before we go into the Q&A with our attendees?
Nope. Thank y'all for your time and listening to me stutter around a little bit.
No, you did a great job. And Kathleen, I'll turn this back over to you, and you can tell us if there's any questions.
Yeah, we have had a couple from some of our attendees, some of which you all may have anticipated because you addressed the question of reporting. But Tina, one of our attendees, has asked, is this simply an AR reporting tool, or can you run reports on other information? She uses the example of credentialing, and I didn't see Michael cite an example of a report around credentialing. She also asks, can you build your own reports and publish them for other users to run? I'll let either Craig or Michael tackle that question, or those two questions.
So I'll start. This is Michael, and we don't have any specific tools for credentialing built. That's usually managed outside of a system like ours. As far as we are focused on AR, we do have some reports that capture clinical information, and pretty much anything that is in your database, whether it be SIS, Advantix, or Vision, we pull over a lot of information, a number of different fields of information, and we don't report on all of that for everyone, but upon request we are able to build custom reports that are specific to your needs, because James has a very unique way that his center looks at things, and we've done a lot of custom mapping and adjustments to account for that and show him certain metrics that are important for him. His own home office has taken a step farther, and as he mentioned, they built in some, and Craig also mentioned that we've built some specific pages that incorporate their specific data elements. So that is available, but we do not offer users the ability to come in and write their own pages. We actually do that for you.
Okay, good. The handful of other questions that we have had come in via the chat or the Q&A interface have actually been answered in the later part of today's presentation. So that's it in terms of questions that we've had from today's attendees. But we will welcome any questions that people would like to send to us. They can certainly reach out to any of the panelists using the email address that you see there on the screen. We also have a very brief survey that will pop up as this webinar is ending, and we will appreciate it if you could take a minute or so just to complete a few questions for the purposes of helping us to understand your needs and how we might be able to help you with those. And that being said, I'd like very much to thank the panelists that we've had today, including both James Bell and Michael and Craig from Clara, and our own Ann Geyer. Thank you for your time and attention today.
Thank you.